back to the kitchen, everybody. This is your boy, the Mad Chef, and this is yet again another installment of Pinterest Challenges. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one tonight. The author of the original recipe that we're doing tonight is Eat Well 101, and if you follow their recipe for this, you ain't going to be eating well. You're going to be eating, and well, I suppose that's fine enough. But we're covering their beef ragu pasta, and you see the quotations here. Oh God, this whole recipe is broken. Let me first start off with saying there's no ragu being harmed in their ragu. First problem is it's a ground beef ragu, which I understand that's a weeknight friendly sort of thing, but a true beef ragu pasta is made with a whole piece of beef that's been braised over a long period of time in sofrito and wine and all that good stuff. There's none of that. So basically what they're doing is a very poor version of a pasta bolognese, but it's really not even that. They're just making fancy spaghetti of rigatoni noodles. So we're going to make this the best it's ever been. And guys, if you look at the ingredients of the original beef ragu pasta recipe, it's ground beef, pasta, onions, parsley. That has no place in this. And then canned or jarred marinara. Let me tell you something. There's no sofrito. There is no ragu without sofrito. This is not ragu. This is not ragu. That ain't ragu. Guys, there's no ragu harmed in any of this. So we're going to make this the best weeknight pasta bolognese or beef ragu pasta, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to make it all from scratch, starting with our passata or pasta sauce. All right, so there's only 5 ingredients in this sauce. 28-ounce can of San Marzano tomatoes, 3/4 of a cup of water, 2 teaspoons dry basil. Really, you want fresh basil, but what's great about San Marzano, especially the Cento brand, is they are packed with fresh basil, but you still want more of that flavor. But that's what I get for forgetting to pick some up. And then, of course, salt. And then we're just going to make this a little more aromatic with the introduction of a bay leaf infused oil, and we're going to cook it in there and pull it out when it's done. So that being said, let's get started making our delicious but simple tomato basil passata. In a nice large pan over medium-high heat, we've got some extra virgin olive oil that is up to temp and ready to roll. So what we're going to do now is add in both of our bay leaves. Guys, you can use either dried or fresh. I just so happen to have dried bay leaves on hand, so that's what I'm using. Both will work. And what the goal here is not to fry these bay leaves. All we're doing is trying to infuse the oil with their flavor and get that nice, beautiful smell of bay leaf perfuming from the pan. Once you smell that perfume, that wonderful aroma that a bay leaf gives off, it is time to go in with our 28-ounce can of San Marzano tomatoes that I have crushed by hand. Guys, you have to crush your San Marzano tomatoes. Get them whole and crush them with your hands. That's what you're supposed to do. And then add in your water. And then your 2 teaspoons of dried basil. If you have fresh basil, go ahead and start ripping up a few leaves and putting them in there. This warped pan was really not the pan I was planning on using today until I realized that my Tefal large pan was living its best life in the dishwasher. So this warped, old faithful, combat-ridden, old faithful pan will just have to work for today. All right, and once we have brought up our tomato sauce to a simmer, and you see that nice bubble action, which doesn't take very long to happen, we're going to give it a nice stir, and we're going to do like we always do when we make tomato sauces. This is going to be a quick pan sauce, so it's only going to take about 25 minutes to make. So we're going to reduce this heat down to medium and let it simmer, stirring for every 5 minutes. All right, at this point, our sauce only has 5 more minutes left, so we're going in with the 2 tablespoons of salt. We're going to give that a quick stir and let it simmer for its last 5 minutes. And of course, at this point, I have already prepared the sofrito for the next step of this meal. So we're going to let this go for 5 minutes, pull out the bay leaves, and I will see you when it's time to move on to our next step. And in a different pan over medium-high heat, we have some nice extra virgin olive oil that's hot and ready to roll. And to that, we're going to be adding in our sofrito, which is half of a yellow onion diced, one rib of celery that has been rinsed and diced, and then one large carrot that has been rinsed, peeled, and diced. And we're going to go ahead and hit this with a heavy dose of kosher salt to help prevent it from caramelizing or browning too much. And then, like last time in my lasagna bolognese video, we're going to let this cook down for about 9 minutes. However, despite cooking this sofrito identically to the way we did in my lasagna bolognese video, these onions caramelized instantly when they hit the pan, even with all that salt on them. Now, keep in mind, I did gradually reduce this heat, pull the pan off and on, and at 9 minutes, this is what it looks like. Now, a lot of you may think, dude, this is burnt. But let me tell you, my gut told me to save this, and I'm glad I did. Because at first, I thought I was going to have to throw away my whole sofrito. Now, guys, in no situation should your sofrito look like this, but the surprising truth is none of this is burnt. It is heavily caramelized. There was no burn smell coming from the pan at all. And notice how everything is just kind of reduced to nothing before we put the meat in. Everything smelled like a normal sofrito, so I kept it. And keep in mind, we went from medium-high heat to just a notch or two below medium. And this is how the veggies progressed. I do feel like the onion was not of the best quality because once I put it into the pan, so much water came out of it. I feel like that might have had a part to do with the way these look. That being said, the pan could have gotten too hot, but it was not on the heat for very long at all. So I'm not sure what happened here. But anyways, I followed my gut. I added in those 2 teaspoons of minced garlic and let it cook off for a minute. And then we added in that 2¼ pounds of ground beef. And also, like in the lasagna bolognese video, we're not trying to cook this fully right now. We're just trying to get it browned on both sides. And once we've achieved that, we're adding in our ½ cup of red wine. And we're going to let this reduce down for 15 minutes. Now, let me explain to you why I kept this faulty-looking sofrito. Simply because it wasn't burned, and it smelled caramelized. So, I was hoping that since the onions were caramelized, the carrots, everything, it would add a sweetness to the sauce. And honestly, that's exactly what it did. Because after I cooked the beef thoroughly and drained all the excess fat. Now, I did forget to season the meat before I put the sauce on, guys. Guys, I'm completely burned out at the moment. This is like the cooking version of being asleep at the wheel. Work schedule's been crazy. Sleep schedule's crazy. I'm just teetotally drained. But once I added all that passata in and seasoned it up to taste with some nice salt and ground pepper, I took a nice taste of it. And guys, it is phenomenal. Even though I did end up taking out a lot of the onions that just looked unsightly or too dark for me, they were indeed just extremely caramelized. There's a sweetness and a roasted flavor to pretty much the sauce at this point. And it almost tastes like a roasted onion was introduced with that garlic flavor, adding a little extra savoriness to this tomato basil sauce. I am floored because I thought this would be the end of the video. And guys, trust me, even though sofrito should never look like this, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. And honestly, if your gut tells you something, you should follow it. Because this led me to a successful bolognese-style sauce. So, now that our sauce is completely done, we're reducing the heat down to low for it to simmer. And now we're turning on our pasta water. You guys might be wondering why I'm doing this. Because just like with the lasagna bolognese, this ragu pasta or pasta bolognese, the same rules apply. The longer you cook that meat sauce, the better it's going to taste. So by cooking our noodles after the meat sauce is done, affords us an extra 15 to 20 or so minutes to develop flavor. And we're only going to stir this once, and that's as soon as the pasta goes in, like right here, and then we're going to leave it alone until the noodles are done. And if I wasn't already too burned out before, my dumb butt decided to try to put all these rigatoni noodles into that small pan with pasta water, thinking that was going to contain it. But at some point, my inner common sense woke up and said, hey dude, drain the rest of that pasta water, and put everything in this pot because I already had enough pasta water in by bringing some with the noodles when I put it in the pan, plus a couple extra splashes here and there. So I knew my sauce would come together. So I dumped the rest of that water out, combined everything into the pot like a smart person would. And then this is what you have, and it is a totally and completely beautiful creation that was honestly born out of a near tragedy. So the only thing left to do is plate this sucker up, put some nice Parmesan cheese on it, and do the final taste test. All right, and this is simply, honestly, one of the most chaotic cooking experiences I've ever had. Despite the things that could have potentially went wrong, we were still able to save this, and it tastes amazing. Honestly, with a little bit of luck and some food knowledge, we were able to save that. Nothing was burnt, even though it looked a little dark, or rather a lot dark. It was very heavily caramelized. There was no burn smell in anything. And that actually helped melt into the sauce. Most everything but a few onions and some carrots disappeared. So yeah, let's try it. With all the elements combined, the Parmesan cheese on top, the rigatoni noodles, the pasta water, that beef bolognese ragu weeknight style. Now granted, it took me about an hour and 25 minutes, about an hour and a half to get this all done. I probably could have gotten it done in about maybe an hour, just a little over, if I wasn't recording, but this is more of a traditional ground beef ragu or pasta bolognese than what was put in the Pinterest recipe. The tomato basil sauce, while it's classic, it gives a timeless flavor. I do prefer my own sauces because it is missing that onion. It is missing that oregano. So will I make that sauce again? Probably not. I do prefer my own sauces, but this is a very classic, a very simple dish. And I do recommend you all try it. And until next time, this is your boy, the Mad Chef, and I'm out.